If you click this because you made a big mistake and now your brain is running that same terrifying sentence on repeat, I'm done. I ruined my life. It's over for me. I need you to hear me before you hear yourself. You are not doomed. You experience consequences. You might experience embarrassment or a fallout. You might have to rebuild something that feels unfair to rebuild. But doomed is not a diagnosis. It's a nervous system tantrum. It's your brain trying to keep you safe by convincing you to hide forever. And that's the first thing I want to sprinkle into your mind right from the start, because I really want this to stick. Healing an identity does not happen overnight. Control does not arrive in one magical epiphany. Integration is not a switch you just flip. It's a practice you build. And the truth is that it takes time. It takes repetition, patience, and most importantly, grace. Because you're human, not because you're weak. And humans make mistakes. Humans overshoot, yes. Humans cope in dumb ways when they're stressed, when they're lonely, dysregulated, numb, horny, exhausted, or starving for relief. And that's the truth, not an excuse. And the truth is what gives you power. Because power comes from dealing with reality, not from beating yourself up. So let's name the thing. There is a difference between having a fetish and having compulsive behavior that turns into consequences. Those are not the same thing. A foot fetish is a preference, a wiring in your brain, a thing that your brain happens to find stimulating. On the other hand, compulsion is when your nervous system starts using that wiring like a pressure valve, like the only way to feel alive, and you can get relief. When the pressure gets high enough, you stop making choices and you start reacting. That's when people do things that scare them and cross lines and get caught and sometimes even lose jobs. That's when people start saying, I'm a monster. But I really want you to listen carefully. I'm a monster. It's not accountability. It's identity collapse. And it's the fastest way back into the spiral, because when you believe you are the worst thing you've ever done, you stop believing you can change. You stop believing you deserve to try. And then you act accordingly. This is why I'm making this video. As always, I don't do this to shame you, but also I'm not coddling you. I want to give you a solution and a way out of the doom story, because you are not the victim of your fetish, and you are not the victim of your mistakes either. And you need to understand this truth profoundly. Your fetish is not doing this to you. Your mistakes are not happening against you. Mistakes are data. They are clues, if you want. They are messages from reality saying, here's the exact place you need to build skill and you need to grow. Where your old coping strategy doesn't work anymore. That's all a mistake is. Is it painful? Yep. Is it embarrassing? Absolutely. But is it doom? Are you doomed because of a mistake, as bad as it may seem to be? No, you're not. And now I want to talk to the person who's in the aftermath. The consequences already happened. Maybe you got exposed. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe you got confronted and now you're terrified of what people think. The first thing you need to do is stabilize, not try to fix your whole life. You can't fix your whole life in an instant. Because right after a big mistake, your nervous system is on fire. And when your nervous system is lit, you make more mistakes. But that's just how biology works, guys. It's not a character flaw. So the first move is to stop digging the hole while you're panicking, because you're respecting timing, not because you're avoiding responsibility. You don't need to send 10 emotional messages. You don't need to write an essay explaining your soul. You don't need to confess every single detail to random people. And most importantly, you don't have to punish yourself with insomnia and doom scrolling and self hate. You land and get through the next 72 hours like a grown adult who had a dysregulated moment and now is choosing regulation. And this is where grace matters. And do not confuse grace with saying what I did is fine. Grace means you say, I did something and I'm going to respond to this like a human, not like a hunted animal. Because hunted animals do frantic things. Humans can make a plan. So you start by making your environment safe, clean, low trigger, even boring. If you already know what your spiral looks like, you already know the places, the times, the apps, the routes, rituals, the fantasies, and the loneliness pockets that amplify that urge. You already know what your triggers are. So for a short window, you cut access. And I'm not saying you cut it off forever. And not because you're trying to become pure suddenly. No. Also, not because you're trying to erase your sexuality, but rather because you're trying to regain steering control. So we are first stabilizing, and then we rebuild. This is what mature people do. And if you've never done it before, hey, that's okay. You're just learning. But most importantly, you are not doomed. Listen, while you stabilize, you can definitely choose one safe human, okay? But just one. You don't need an audience for this. You don't need a jury that will judge you. One safe person or one professional even. And just say this like, I'm not okay and I need support while I'm figuring this out. You don't need to share details or go into the whole drama. You're just looking for support. But it's important that you get it, because if you try to do this alone and try to keep it a secret at all costs, it won't help you erase this part of yourself. But it will feed the compulsion that got you here in the first place. Isolation feeds compulsion. And if you keep trying to do this alone and to survive it alone, you will keep using the only tool you have, which is the spiral. Now, I want to say something that might sting a little, but it will set you free if you allow it. A lot of you are not addicted to the fetish. You're addicted to the relief. The fetish is just the excuse. So listen, when you tell yourself my foot fetish ruined my life, you're giving the fetish way too much power. You're making it the villain and you make yourself the victim. And victims don't change because victims wait for the villain to stop. But that strategy is inherently broken, so don't wait anymore for a miracle. Don't wait for your fetish to suddenly stop. That miracle won't come, and neither the saviors. The only one who has any power to help you is you. You are the only one who's going to get you out of any sticky situation by becoming the one who is building control. And listen, control is not motivation or a promise you make when you're crying. Control is a skill that you practice when you're calm, so you can have it and let it show up when you're not calm. And yes, it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. But if you take small and steady steps to get you out of that victim mentality, you will gain more and more control. Just like you're building a muscle, you also install new pathways. You repeat the new pattern until it becomes you. That's what patience looks like, and that's grace and self-respect. And please just stop using I should be over this by now, as a weapon against yourself. That sentence is not helping you. That sentence is just shame dressed up as ambition. Now, let's talk about the real mechanics of how people actually change after a big mistake. Compulsions are a chain, they are habits, but they're not random lightning strikes. And if you only fight the chain at the very last second, when you're already aroused, when you're already activated, and you're already half out the door, you're fighting with the weakest version of yourself. So stop doing that. What I want you to do instead is just start observing and studying that chain. It usually goes like this. A trigger hits you. Stress, loneliness, boredom, rejection, exhaustion, feeling like a failure, feeling unseen, feeling numb, and so on. Then your mind creates a story. Something like, I need this, or I deserve this, or this is the only thing that makes me feel alive, or the most dangerous one, I'll just do this once, or this is the last time I'm gonna do it. And then your body shifts. You get activated and then start hunting relief. Your brain narrows, your future disappears, consequences disappear, your reason disappears. And then the only thing that exists is the urge. And then comes the permission slip. That little internal voice that says, nobody will know, or it's not even a big deal, or I already messed up so many times anyway. And then comes the action. And then comes the aftermath. Shame, fear, disgust, panic, sometimes even real painful consequences. And then what happens? Even more stress. And what that means? Another trigger. See, that's the spiral. So, how do we break it? Well, you break it early. You don't wait until the last second of the movie. You start catching the trigger before it happens. And you stop lying to yourself about it. That's also very important. If your trigger is stress, don't pretend you're fine and then mysteriously spiral at midnight. Because it's not that mysteriously, is it? If your trigger is loneliness, you don't isolate yourself for 5 days and then act surprised when your brain starts looking for a hit. If your trigger is boredom, you don't stare at a screen for 6 hours straight and then you accidentally find yourself in places you shouldn't be. But you do treat triggers like smoke, not like a moral failing. And when smoke shows up, you do the grown-up thing. You intervene. And I know you can absolutely do that. But this is where a lot of you need to upgrade that self-talk and shift the paradigm you're operating from. You need to upgrade your language and name things for what they actually are. So what I mean by that is, instead of saying, I'm disgusting for having this urge, you just say, yeah, my nervous system is activated, so I need to interrupt the pattern. Because the urge in itself is not a crime. Everybody has urges. The issue is what you do with it. And you always have a choice. So you learn state shifts and fast ones, physical ones. If you feel that wave building, change your body. You move. You get out of the environment. You snap the loop. How? Cold water on your face, a walk, a quick run. You do 10 push-ups. You do some breath work. You listen to some music. Anything really that changes psychology and breaks that trance. You're doing this to be smart and ahead of the problem. You're not trying to be strong. You will become strong at some point. But here's a huge piece that people miss. You don't just remove the behavior. You gotta replace the ritual. Because if your brain has been using this as relief, When you rip it away with no replacement, your brain is going to revolt. And that's when people white knuckle for a week and then explode and go back. So you replace the ritual with something that gives a similar effect, but without the consequences. It can be private, it can be consensual, it can be safe, or even boring. But it cannot involve violating someone's privacy, workplace boundaries, or consent. Because this is the line we're drawing. You get to have your sexuality, that is not a crime. But you don't get to hurt yourself or others with it. That is what self-respect, integrity, and being an adult looks like. Now, let's talk about the part that everyone avoids. What happens when the consequences already happened? Maybe you lost your job. And if you did, just breathe with me for a second. Okay, so you lost your job. You did not lose your entire life though. You're still here, you're watching this video, and you're learning. Your brain will try to turn this into a permanent identity. I'm just that guy. I'm ruined. I'm finished. It's over. No. You are a human who made a mistake and now is rebuilding. And rebuilding is not a punishment. Rebuilding is a choice, it's a decision. And yes, rebuilding takes time. I'm going to keep repeating this. But it's not impossible. This is where patience becomes your superpower, because if you expect yourself to instantly be fixed, you will quit on yourself the second you don't feel perfect. So instead of demanding perfection and quick changes, just build proof. Not promises, actual proof. What you build is structure, a routine, a plan for your vulnerable hours, boundaries for your environment, support. You show your nervous system each day, reaffirming to yourself, okay, I'm not doing that loop anymore. And you contain the narrative. You can say, I had a personal issue that affected my work. I'm handling it. That's it. And while you rebuild externally, you also rebuild internally. You stop treating yourself like the enemy. And you, most importantly, stop hating yourself. Because here is the deepest truth I want to plant into you. And I want it to echo in your mind long after this video ends. You are not here to punish yourself into being better. That approach is cruel and it does not work. If it did, everyone would be happy and free and so cool by now. You are here to love yourself into being honest. And honesty is what creates change. Honesty says, I can see the chain. I can see the habits. I can see my triggers. I can see what I'm avoiding. I can see what my fetish has been used for. And then you integrate the lesson. Because mistakes are for you, not against you. Yes, mistakes can be brutal teachers, but they reveal the exact lesson you were avoiding. Maybe the lesson is boundaries. Maybe the lesson is consent or respect or asking for help before you're at the edge. Or maybe the lesson is just learning how to regulate stress without going into a secret life. Or how to be a sexual person without turning your sexuality into a self-destruction ritual. If you integrate the lesson, you don't need to keep repeating the same mistake again and again and again to learn it again and again and again. Because you're not going to make the same mistake. That's how people evolve, by being teachable, not flawless. Because let me tell you a secret. No one is flawless. Those people just don't exist. Now, I want to speak directly to the person who's in the darkest part of all of this. The one who thinks they deserve to suffer and think that they are permanently contaminated. The one who thinks that they should disappear. Listen, that voice is pain trying to control you. It's not your truth, though. It wants you to hide because hiding feels safer than rebuilding. But hiding is not safe. Hiding is how this grows and how the spiral becomes your personality. So, I'm going to give you a new identity. If you're willing to wear it, you are not doomed. You are not your worst moment. You are not your fetish. You are a human who is learning control. And control is something you build slowly, repeatedly, with patience, with grace, and with real support. And you're going to mess up sometimes. Yes, while you learn, because humans do mess up. I messed up so many times in my life. But messing up does not mean you go back to zero. It just means you adjust. You tighten the system. You learn the clues. You integrate the lesson. And you just keep going. Because the only way you truly lose if you decide that that one mistake gets to define the rest of your life. And it doesn't. Not if you decide to rebuild. So, I want you to know that if you're still here with me, I am extremely proud of you. Because 99% of the people don't have the patience to learn and to rebuild. And if you're watching this video, this in itself is clear proof that you are on the right path. And I want you to comment below one word: control. That shows you're a real one. And if you feel brave, tell me your biggest trigger. But just one word, you don't have to tell me a whole story. Is it stress, loneliness, boredom, rejection, shame? Because I wanted to know that I am reading your comments, and I'm also making the next videos based on what you're actually living. This video is actually inspired by one of your comments. I don't want to put him in a spotlight, but you know who you are, and I thank you for your openness and honesty. It takes real courage to open up. I also thank each one of you. If you want more of this, like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. I'm not here to entertain your shame, guys. I'm here to help you become the version of you who can hold your sexuality with self-respect. And remember, you are not doomed. Never, ever. You're in your rebuild season. And rebuild seasons don't create victims, they create leaders. See you in the next one. Much love.